While North Carolina sleeps, some of its citizens in Mecklenburg and Stanley counties go to work for the United States and the Tar Heel State. A vital but oftentimes overlooked component of the national defense is about to continue its 50-year-old mission. The North Carolina Air National Guard is a unique mix of full-time airmen and part-time guardsmen known as traditional guardsmen and women. They have often been called weekend warriors, and that is true. 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks of active duty service each year is the minimum obligation required of air guardsmen. However, circumstances can extend that duty and place them in the line of fire. In their civilian lives, air guardsmen and women work in banks, factories, schools, hospitals, and of course in the aviation industry, to name a few. The only contact most residents in the Tar Heel State have with one of the nation's outstanding Air National Guard units is during an occasional overflight, when the thunder of 4 engines demands a look skyward. Most citizens don't even know that North Carolina has an Air National Guard unit, let alone its purpose. Fewer still understand who a guardsman is and the many roles the North Carolina Air National Guard is called on to perform around the world and here in its home state. The civilian militia of the Revolutionary War era soon evolved into the National Guard. In the late 1940s, when they were first chartered, Air National Guard units were charged with a dual mission. The first was to provide trained personnel and equipment to supplement the active duty Air Force. The second mission was to provide assistance within the state during times of natural or other disasters. Those roles are still primary today, with the Air Guard flying U.S. Air Force-owned aircraft in a concept called Total Force. In many respects, the Air Guardsman is on equal footing with his active duty brethren. It all begins here at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, the Air Guard's home since its inception. Air mobility is the mission. Excellence is the goal that has been met or exceeded almost from the moment the unit was formed in 1948. Today, the Air Guard has a complement of 1,500 officers and airmen operating from Charlotte and 2 facilities in Stanley County to the northeast. The North Carolina Air Guard is responsible for a variety of duties, including airlift, aeromedical evacuation, and communications. Virtually every county in the state is represented among its ranks. Though busiest on drill weekends, the Charlotte base is operational 52 weeks a year. The C-130 transport that the Air Guard flies and maintains is the Armed Forces version of the 18-wheeler. Anytime, day or night, whatever the conditions or peril, the Air Guard's officers and enlisted personnel are charged with moving their cargo on time and on target. Every North Carolina Air National Guard takeoff is the culmination of the countless and usually unsung efforts of everyday people who just happen to wear their country's uniform. This is their story.
The Air National Guard is a small part of the entire military organization that maintains our very young, youthful experiment in democracy. There are threats daily to this democracy, and someone must stand to ensure that there is strength behind the words. The North Carolina Air National Guard is one of those strengths that gives people the opportunity to stand and be counted in one way or another. We are no more patriotic than anyone else. It's just our way of serving.
In 1948, just 3 years after the end of the Second World War, an Air National Guard unit was about to become a consuming passion for a young Charlotte furniture executive and Air Force Reserve Lieutenant Colonel, William J. Payne.
he was at the furniture store at the time, and he got a call saying there were, I think 12 P-47s on their way. And he said, "You're kidding, turn and relax." I said, "I can't take them." I said, "Well, you got to take them." He said, "I will not take them. We don't have a thing here, not anything." And they said, "Well, we're sorry, they're on the way."
Payne needed pilots and mechanics and had little time to find them. But in March 1948, the North Carolina Air National Guard received federal recognition with a total of 24 officers and 64 airmen. It was a struggle to get the squadron operational at Morris Field.
I think there was a Air Force advisor that helped, and then they started just calling people they knew of, and one thing led to another. But before it was federally recognized, that was when all the planning was done on my dining room table.
Payne quit the furniture business to devote himself to growing the unit over the next few years with the addition of an aircraft control and warning squadron and a communications squadron in the Baden and Wadesboro areas. Resources for the communications units were all but non-existent.
The unit at Baden met in the library, and the unit at Wadesboro met in the back of the Carolina Fire and Light Company building downtown.
On the flying side of the Air Guard, in late 1949, the 156th Fighter Squadron retired its P-47s for the F-51 Mustang. Revered today as one of the greatest piston-engine aircraft ever, back then it was all but obsolete with the advent of the jet age. At that time, current-issue aircraft were not being assigned to Air National Guard units. In fact, little was modern about the Charlotte inventory or base.
The buildings were non-occupied. Quite a few of the interiors were dilapidated. Those had to be built back up. The hangar was the original hangar that was built for Morris Field.
Most of us that came out of the Air Force, we all had our personal toolbox, and when we came out of the Air Force, we brought our toolbox with us. And that's how we operated the Air Guard when it got started. There was no tools from supplier, places like that.
The control tower was a steel tower with 4 legs sticking way up in the air. It made you think about a tall water tank. It sat right out next to the runway.
During the Korean War, nearly 25% of North Carolina Air National Guard officers and airmen were sent to that Asian peninsula, including Colonel Payne. Once the conflict ended, the 156th was reestablished in Charlotte, with the outdated F-51 still in the inventory. The 156th mission was domestic air defense, with the F-86 Saberjet soon being assigned to the North Carolina Air Guard. The 1950s were marked by Cold War tensions that often kept the North Carolina Air Guard in constant readiness. Pilots and ground crews on alert status had to be ready to scramble on short notice to intercept and identify unknown aircraft. As jets assumed the dominant role in the Air Guard's inventory, staffing grew, and so did the base. Its growth mirrored that of Charlotte Municipal Airport. Air Guard funding lengthened runways to accommodate its jets and the ever-growing commercial air traffic to the Queen City. The Guard supplied the airport with its first on-site firefighting equipment, an arrangement that continues today. In 1958, the unit added the first of many women who served as nurses. In 1959, Air Guardsmen shouldered rifles and relieved the Army Guard on strike duty in Henderson.
I can recall as you rode by, the ladies would call you names and flip up their dresses at you and do all kind of obscene gestures and all. They just didn't like the Air National Guard because they thought we were on the side of the company, and really we were neutral.
Henderson is the only time the unit has ever been assigned this duty.
During national disasters, or whether it be a conflict worldwide, the Air National Guard is here to provide that support and to augment the Air Force and any other service of the United States. We are trained to do our job. We do have a mission, and we take pride in what we do.
There are 12 unit training assemblies a year in Charlotte and Baden, better known as drill weekends. There's a lot that has to be accomplished in just 2 days a month to meet the State Air Guard's all-encompassing mission statement.
Maintaining readiness. And that's an all-encompassing phrase. It just means that we've got to address all of the training issues and personnel issues and educational issues that are required for our members to be able to respond to the president's or the governor's call at any time.
Whether it's firearms training off-site or chemical warfare instruction, everything is geared toward maintaining proficiency and adapting to the challenges of an ever-changing world.
You've just been through an attack, okay, on base, okay? The base is dirty, and you may be dirty from the chemicals that they used, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to put you on a bus and send you about 10 kilometers away from the base, to an area that's clean.
Chemical warfare training notwithstanding, the traditional guardsman's civilian job skills often parallels his duties, which simplifies the training. One of the biggest changes in the Guard over the past 30 years has been the participation of women and minorities.
It's really good and a good positive effect on this unit. We're I don't want to say a softer, gentler force, but I think we are in many respects, and I think they've brought a new humanness here that wasn't here before, a softening of some of the hardness that we had in the old days.
Because the 145th Airlift Wing is made up of 80% traditional guardsmen, wages are less than a comparable wing of the active duty Air Force. Skills between the two are compatible, since Air National Guard pilots and maintenance crews often got their primary training during earlier active duty service. On drill weekends, civil engineers work with construction equipment. The Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron works on EMT skills, to name a few. Much of the training is conducted by full-time guardsmen called guard technicians, who constitute less than 20% of the wing's personnel.
Our guard technicians are those full-time employees that basically hold the place together during the week when our, what we call traditional guardsmen, have jobs downtown. They do all the preparation oftentimes that allows our traditional guardsmen to come out and do their mission in a shorter period of time.
As in any business, and maybe more so in the Air Guard, time management is critical.
You're talking about 12 drill weekends, which is 24 days a year. We have to continue the training of our people. So our drill weekends are very, very structured. They're very busy for everyone because we only have 24 days a year with these people to keep them trained to maintain their wartime skills.
Beyond drill weekend and the 2 weeks of active duty training, there are technical schools for guardsmen to learn new skills and advance in grade. The employer support of the Guard and Reserve program, ESGR for short, is a law protecting the jobs of those who serve their country on a part-time basis, whether it is for annual active duty, extended deployments, or technical training. Although the pace is most active on drill weekends, the Air Guard's responsibilities to the total force concept keep it busy constantly.
We have 2 airplanes doing European missions this week. We have 4 airplanes out in doing what we call CONUS, or in the continental U.S., doing guard lift missions, missions hauling people or supplies around the country.